We'll call the Lewiston City Council November 6th, 2023 work session to order. First order of business is the pledge. If you would stand and join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 on our agenda is citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on agenda items or other items they wish to bring to the attention of the council. Citizens are encouraged to discuss operational issues in advance with the mayor in consideration of others wishing to speak. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. If you're here in relation to the public hearing, please wait until that public hearing is open. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 4, public hearings and related action items. Letter A, public hearing reinstated certain solid waste fees, accepting testimony regarding reinstating certain fees for solid waste drop boxes and dumpsters and clean out of dumpsters, commercial containers. We will have Public Works Director Dustin Johnson. First, I will open the public hearing. We'll have a presentation by Director Johnson and any other staff. We will take testimony from the public. The council will then get to ask questions, and then we will close the public hearing. So, officially opening public hearing.
Good afternoon, City Council. Dustin Johnson, Public Works Director. In front of you today is regards the public waste fees. So if you recall, typically in August, we amend our utility fees, sanitation, water, and wastewater. This year, sanitation rate was a 0% rate increase across the board, so there was no changes to that. But every year, if you recall, we try to clean up generally any fees that aren't usually that aren't being assessed. We try and eliminate those, or if there's new ones, those would be the times we introduce those. So there were some rates that were taken off of that resolution that were unaware to public works staff, but working with utility billing, they were not notified of these proposed changes. So there's a handful of fees in here that were accidentally taken off. And so we typically don't like to do public hearings in our work sessions, but this is somewhat of a timely manner in that we have a dozen or so accounts out there that don't have a rate that they are being charged to. So that is why it is in front of you today. These rates are previous rates, but we eliminated them on accident, so we're bringing them back. They are the same rate that they were before, since it was a 0% rate increase. And most of these were, as it was called out in the introduction, commercial dumpsters, so it has no real impact to your standard residential users of our sanitation service. So I think that is all I have in a high-level overview of the situation. I'm here for any questions, and we also have Gene Gordon from Utility Billing, who caught the air to answer any questions that you may have. So with that, I will stand for questions.
Questions? Any testimony from the public? No questions, no testimony. We will close the public hearing and move on to B, Resolution 2023-55, considering restating fees for solid waste, yard waste, and recycling, and reinstating certain fees for solid waste drop boxes, dumpsters, and clean out of dumpster commercial containers. This is an action item. Councilor Towsley.
I'll make the motion to approve Resolution 2023-55.
Been moved by Councilor Towsley, seconded by Counselor Spicklemeyer to approve resolution 2023-55. Clerk Brockie?
Counselor Forsman?
Aye.
Counselor Kleber?
Aye.
Counselor Schroeder?
Aye.
Counselor Towesley?
Aye.
Counselor Spicklemeyer?
Aye.
Council President Licky?
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to agenda item 5. These are discussion items. Please note that identifying an item as an action item does not require the city council to vote on that item. Letter A is a presentation by the Idaho Department of Lands. Department of Lands Urban and Community Forestry Program Manager Matt Perkins related to the value of tree canopies in reducing heat and the benefits of trees to assist with stormwater management. Parks and Recreation Director Barker is going to hold his introduction to a very short period of time.
Thank you, Council President Lidkey, City Council, for allowing us to be on the agenda today. Matt Perkins is here from Idaho Department of Lands out of Boise. He also represents the central part of the state. There's 3 different regions that they're broken up into. So we have Matt also, not only is he the statewide program manager, but he also is our direct contact through Idaho Department of Lands for any needs that we have within urban forestry. We were lucky enough to have Matt up here also in July for a presentation that Councilman Spicklemeyer was at, and thought that there was a couple items that he'd like to see come to council just for discussion. And we brought rain today, so you could also connect that to the need for trees within stormwater management. But I'll go ahead and turn it over to Matt Perkins now so he can give his presentation.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the time. I'm honored to be here and speak to you today about the Urban and Community Forestry Program that is part of the Idaho Department of Lands. So, without further ado, Matthew Perkins, Urban and Community Forestry Program Manager for Idaho Department of Lands. Next slide, please. Is it not working? Do I have the control? It appears I do. All right, so what we do with the Urban and Community Forestry Program for the state of Idaho is we provide assistance to cities and communities with developing tree ordinances, community tree management planning, like developing urban forest management plans, organizing community tree boards, developing professional staff, providing any kind of technical assistance as far as information about how urban and community forestry can fit into your community, and helping you with the Tree City USA and Arbor Day program. So if you're not familiar with what the Tree City USA Arbor Day program is, essentially it's communities who either have a city forester or a tree board, and they spend $2 per capita on an urban and community forestry program each year. And they have a tree ordinance that is enforceable, and then they celebrate Arbor Day. When you can demonstrate those 4 things that your community does, then you become recognized by Arbor Day Foundation as a Tree City USA. You may have seen the signs along your highways, along the entry points. Lewiston is in fact a Tree City USA. We also facilitate partnerships across government, nonprofits, and industries, and we help with getting financial assistance through grant programs to help fund additional urban and community forestry programs. As Tim mentioned, we currently have the state divided essentially into 4 different quadrants. We have the Panhandle region, the Central region, Southeast Idaho, and Southwest Idaho. To help me cover the entire state, I have Garth Davis with Spokane Conservation District, who handles the North Panhandle region, and Gary Bates with 40 Solutions. He has been servicing the southeast and the southwest contracts for over 20 years now. And we used to have a representative here in the central region as well, but over the last several years, between the turnover in the program, that has fallen by the wayside. And so because you don't have that representation now, that falls on the program manager, i.e. myself. So I'm here to help you guys with your urban and community forestry program needs. City of Lewiston has qualified as a Tree City USA since 1989. It's 34 years. Congratulations on that. And you've received 18 growth awards over those years. Growth awards are presented when a community shows that they go a little bit above and beyond each year by continuing to grow their program. Okay. In addition to that, Lewis Clark State College has been recognized as a Tree Campus USA higher education unit too. That's highly commendable. The state of Idaho currently has 61 qualified Tree City USAs. You may have heard recently about the Inflation Reduction Act and all of the programs that have come out of that. Well, just this year, urban and community forestry programs across the nation have benefited from a $1.5 billion input, okay? So the state of Idaho's program was awarded $750,000 to roll out a sub-grant program, which will be rolled out this winter. I'm in the process of developing that as we speak. In addition to the state receiving that $750,000, the city of Haley was awarded $139,000. Malad City was awarded $1 million. The city of Nampa was awarded $1 million. Pocatello was awarded $1 million. Rexburg was awarded $1 million, and Soda Springs was awarded $500,000. Now those programs will be actually managed in collaboration with national pass-through partners, but I have my door open to them to extend my technical assistance through my program with them. In addition to that, there's a nonprofit organization in Ada County called the Treasure Valley Canopy Network. They were awarded $1 million, or a little over $1 million to continue to develop and grow their tree planting program. You may have heard of the Elaine Clegg tree planting challenge in the Treasure Valley, where they are hoping to plant one tree for every household in the Treasure Valley. Treasure Valley Camping Network is involved in rolling that out. For the Pacific Northwest, the Northwest Youth Corps also were awarded $12 million. So that's not just Idaho, that's for Washington, Oregon, Idaho as well. So, the picture here shows essentially, what a community without trees looks like. I would imagine, none of us would want to really hang out on these streets or sidewalks for too long in the middle of the summer. But with a little bit of additional planning and, adding some trees, people start to hang out a little bit more in those shopping areas and do a little bit more shopping. And when you go one step further and incorporate them into your communities as part of the infrastructure, then they have much more benefit. And that's kind of the problem over the past, for a long time. Trees have always been recognized for their contribution as far as shade and aesthetics, but we need to start recognizing the benefits that they can provide your communities when they are thought of as part of the infrastructure, because they provide a lot of different benefits beyond that. So one of the ways that the IDL Urban and Community Forestry Program helps with communities is we provide a tree inventory system that we pay for and allow cities to build their tree inventories. And in addition to being just an inventory system, you can actually use it to plan where the most impact will be when you're planting trees in your communities. So by toggling all of these switches on the left-hand side of that screen there, you can play around with it and show where most of your impervious structures are, and it can show you where most of your canopy is, and it can help you plan on where you need to provide more canopy and help develop your green stormwater infrastructure that way. So, the Treasure Valley Canopy Network conducted urban heat index mapping. I'm sorry for the typo, it's actually 2019 the Treasure Valley Canopy Network did this. It consisted of hanging instruments out the windows of cars and driving around the area at 3 different times of the day throughout the valley. They had pre-mapped routes that they took, and they were measuring all of the climatic conditions during those times. And it was able to map out, where the hottest parts of where the city was, and it helps them plan on where they need to build that canopy. There are all kinds of tools for this now, for city planning, for incorporating this into your plans. And beyond the urban heat index, there's also a lot of stormwater mitigation values that trees have planted in your communities when they are planned correctly and appropriately. There are a lot of different models out now, but just by incorporating these suspended paving systems with silvacells, you are able to give the trees much more rooting space so that they can develop without destroying your sidewalk infrastructure and whatnot. As I think if you walk through downtown, I was doing a little bit of that myself here today. There are some beautiful trees here downtown, but you can see where they're starting to kind of buckle the pavement a little bit here and there. By incorporating these systems into that planning, you can avoid that, and these systems will help capture all this stormwater and keep it from going through your stormwater treatment plants, thereby lowering the costs of that type of mitigation. So, again, there are a lot of tools and resources out there. I would be happy to work with you guys and show you more of these. I wish I had a little bit more time to spend with you on that today, but I'm essentially here to say that I'm here to help you with this, and that's what we do across the state. So I mentioned the tree inventory system. By having an up-to-date tree inventory system for your community, it helps you determine where you need to allocate those expenses for risk mitigation. But it can also, when you have an updated system, it can show you all of the other ecosystem benefits that your trees are providing your community. So aside from that, there's another urgent item that I wanted to mention, and that is the emerald ash borer. Okay, I don't know if many of you have heard of the emerald ash borer. It's an invasive pest that came to the United States back in 2001 from Asia, came in some shipping containers, and since it has showed up here, it has wreaked havoc on ash tree populations across the United States. Okay, the ash tree populations back east are completely devastated. The furthest west it was tracked as of last year, middle of last year was Colorado, but then at some point in the summertime, it showed up in Portland, Oregon area. So my question is, how did it get from Colorado to Portland and skip through us? Well, I imagine it might be here in Idaho in one of our communities, and it just has not been discovered yet. So we have put together an emerald ash borer preparedness plan that we've been rolling out to all of our communities to help them be prepared for this pest once it shows up. Idaho does stand to benefit from the fact that we don't have any contiguous native ash tree populations, but where we are at risk is unfortunately our urban canopies, our canopies in the city, do have a lot of ash trees, and they consist of a large percentage of ash trees. So we stand to potentially lose a large part of our canopies to this pest. So we need to be prepared for it, and this is one of the other things that we do to assist our communities. I will stand for question, and I thank you again for your time. I hope I didn't take up too much.
I don't know.
Counselor Spiegelmeier?
So Matt, you mentioned the heat indexing and that. So when we had our presentation before, there's actually Lewiston is on the map
Yes.
and shows it as well as our inventory, correct?
Yep. You guys have an inventory. It's my understanding that been without a city arborist, city forester for a couple of years, maybe. I'm not sure what happened with that. Maybe had a hard time filling that position, maybe.
So just to follow up to it then, how do we update the inventory?
So that would take, and that's a great question, because it leads me into another way that my program can assist your community, because we have funding available to help pay for somebody to come and update your inventory for you, okay? So, and that's through the bipartisan infrastructure law. So we have money available for that, whether that be you guys using that money to create a position, like a temporary position of your own, to have someone do that for you, or I can actually get a contractor statewide and have a statewide contractor come and do that for you.
Thank you.
So,
Counselor Delsley?
thank you. I appreciate all that you've got. I do have to comment, the irony in looking at that first picture, which is an absolutely stunning picture, but it's tough to find a tree on it.
Yeah, right.
I kind of noticed that. I love that shot. It's beautiful. But when we're looking at the Idaho communities, win with the IRA, how do we get in line to be,
I can go back to the slide if you'd like.
Sure.
I think you were referring to, this one right here.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So back when they announced this funding program for urban and community forestry statewide, they first rolled the program out to states. And all of us states, there's a coordinator such as myself for every state has at least one coordinator. We put together our packages for the state and proposed them, and they were reviewed by Congress, and then we were awarded what we were awarded there. So, and then after that, there was a public option that was made available to communities, nonprofits, whatnot, and I spent a lot of time reaching out to communities and trying to help them develop. In fact, we helped the city of Malad and Rexburg develop their programs and helped Nampa as well. So I was pleased to see that they were awarded. There were some other communities throughout the state who just weren't able to get the time. I mean, this was presented to us on a very short notice kind of program.
So this is a one-time
It's supposed to be 5 years. We have not heard yet whether there will be another option. I mean, we're expecting one, but the first rollout initially has been gone. Supposedly there's going to be more options throughout the next couple of years for this. But we'll see how that goes.
As a city that's had 39 years as being a part of the Tree City USA program, I think we should be looking at possible opportunities for this.
I would be happy to help you guys develop a proposal. When I roll out the statewide sub-grant program, we would be happy to help advise you guys on applying for a portion of that for sure.
Thank you.
There's one caveat with this funding, of course, and we were provided what's called the climatic and economic justice screening tool to help us determine, because they want most of the funding to go towards the disadvantaged communities, communities who don't often have these opportunities to develop these programs. So and when I say they, I'm talking about Congress has provided us with this, call it CJEST, the Climatic Economic Justice Screening Tool, okay? And it's based on census data, U.S. Census data, and it shows where those parts of the communities are. So those communities who are identified as disadvantaged, underserved, according to the CJEST tool, will not be required to provide any match for the funding. So, and the state wants us to focus our efforts in those areas. So,
Thank you.
yes.
I have a question in regards to that. When will we know, like, the areas? 'Cause, like, looking at what was funded, they're all southwest and southeast Idaho. And I feel like a majority of our evergreens especially are like,
Yeah, absolutely, yep. I was working with Sandpoint initially, and they just did not have the capacity to work out a program, as I'm sure many of other communities did too. And there is, the level of interest in these programs is, it varies statewide. So I would love to work out something with you guys here in central Idaho. That would be fantastic. And I'd be happy to show you this climate and economic justice screening tool too. I'm sorry I did not add this to the presentation. Limited with my time today in front of you, so.
thank you. Are there any other
See that.
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Can I help you?
All I do is just wake up, I've been working.
We're on letter B, Mr. Mayor.
Did you continue on?
Yes. We'll move on to item B, under discussions, the no-build easement request update, considering whether to grant a no-build easement for K&G Construction LLC on city property. Mayor Johnson, but, we can, just a few minutes here. Was there anybody, staff, that was gonna present on that?
Madam Chair, I think this is really an open discussion item here. The no-build easement, we had a short consideration of this previously. And as you recall, K&G Construction had asked council to consider whether or not they were interested in granting them a no-build easement for the purpose of how they built next to the property line over there. And I know that we've received some information from our assistant city attorney on this. And so unless council had any questions on that, I would expect them to make a decision today on whether or not to, if they're interested in considering that. There were some questions previously about providing a public benefit or not, or if we do it here, would we do it elsewhere, and so forth. That was the discussion. So if you'd like, Madam Chair, I would just ask if there are any comments from council members on this, concerns, questions.
We're waiting from legal to hear some responses to our questions.
Well, we had some information from legal presented. Jennifer, did they get a copy of that? Did council get a copy of that
Yes.
previously?
Yes, they did, Mayor.
Doesn't include.
I can
Thank you.
Jennifer Tingano, Assistant City Attorney. So at the last meeting, it was requested that the legal department look into whether or not there would be a public purpose in granting the no-build easement on city property. And we were not able to find a public purpose available or that would justify the no-build easement at this time.
Are there any questions from the council or comments?
Now, wouldn't, if it was no build, wouldn't that, provide long-term, permanent parking? Wouldn't that be a public?
There is currently public parking available on the spot or in that space. The benefit would solely be for the private property owner.
Is this something that our city code is just disallowing, that is something we can take a look at moving forward? Because it's, from what I'm hearing is that really that's our only holdback, and that really safety is not an issue. So is this something that we can look at in the code process?
It's actually a provision in the Idaho Constitution that the city can't lend its faith or credit to any private corporations or parties. And so by extending a benefit, which would be the no-build easement on city property to a private party, that would be in violation of that Idaho constitutional provision. There's a few other provisions that would technically apply here, but ultimately it falls down to the public purpose doctrine. And unless the city can clearly identify a public purpose for such an easement, then the city is constitutionally prohibited from granting such an easement.
And city staff has not found anything that would allow us to do that then, correct?
Not anything that would benefit the public in general as opposed to the private property owner.
In light of that, I'm not sure how we can move forward with anything else. Rejecting
Mr. Mayor, would you like an official direction from the council, or knowing that we?
Madam Chair, I think it would be very helpful for staff, for the city and for the applicants, to know what the council's desire is in this action. Yes, it's listed as an action item, so a motion to grant or not to grant the no-build easement would be appropriate.
Mayor, Madam Chair,
Counselor Towsley.
I would make a motion to direct staff to revoke or to not grant a no-build easement for K&G Construction LLC on city property.
Moved by Counselor Towsley and seconded by, excuse me. By Kathy, so I can't see looking at her words. Does this need to be roll call or voice? Voice is good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to letter C, this is the fire station discussion. Chief Reitmeyer is going to review and discuss the City of Lewiston Fire Station study, which should have been in your packet.
Boy, howdy.
Good afternoon, council. Mr. Mayor, thank you for some time with you this afternoon. I'm a month in now to being your new fire chief and starting to dig into some of the work that's before us and our team. So I appreciate some time with you today to really seeking some strategic direction from the council and which way you would like the fire department to proceed with the issue revolving our facilities study. The goal today is just to have that discussion to kind of get back to the 10,000 foot level and look at this, look at where we're at and where you'd like to go. This is just an overall map that shows our 3 station locations. The colors denote the response coverage area. And if you can see it, it just depends on your screen resolution. Green's good, orange and red are bad, yellow's not so good. So a little bit of history here when you look at Winston Churchill said that plans are of little importance, but planning's essential. And that's because you just don't know what the plan's gonna run into once things get going. Priorities change as opportunities present themselves. And when the planning process was put into place to build a new fire station and to look at the fire station facilities, other things have changed over the years. We had community park opportunities that came up, a library opportunity that came up. We've saved some money and dedicated some money to the building of the station. We changed the way that we respond to aircraft incidents on the airport. We had a change in government. We had a pandemic. The list kind of goes on of things that change ever since you started doing your plan. MacArthur said no plan ever survives first contact with the enemy. I think Mike Tyson said no plan, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. That was the modern day of that. But where we're at, when you look at it, we paid for a study. That study was presented to a prior council. I don't believe Councilman Kleberg may have been on the council back then, but I don't know that you were. So it got presented to a council. It was never formally adopted in, though, as I've searched the records. And I think that at the time, the government structure that was in place, they started working on the plan. They took the first recommendation, moved that forward, and that's been what we were working on up until this last spring. When we look at the history of the cost and where we're at there, this study here that was in your council packet, we paid almost $30,000 to have this study done. So hired professional architects, professional planners, they did GIS studies, they looked at trends of our growth and population, response times, and all of those studies, and they put all that information together and came up with a plan and proposed that. From that, there was an initial design that was done on a station and then a piece of property that was purchased. We looked at the traffic studies and redesigning the intersection, all that had to be done. And then finally, we hired an architect and a construction firm and began the design build process and took that up to the 60% point. And all in all, we're all in right now at $263,000 of our money that we've spent. And all we really have left for that is this plan. That's what we have. We still have a piece of property that's not even in this. I think the property is a wash. We may make a little money on it, may lose a little money, but typically property goes up. It's a decent investment if any of us have been in real estate. So what I wanted to look at and discuss with you guys today is just our primary focus. We got so many things going on that I'm taking that step back, being new to the process and looking at it. What is our mission? What is it that the fire department does and what are we supposed to be doing? And that's to respond quickly to our citizens. That's the work that we do. Now, in order to do that, we have to take care of our most valuable resource, our employees. And we have to provide employees with safe working conditions. That's an obligation we all have. And the environment in which they work, we want to make sure that people are sitting in an office chair all day long, have a good office chair, and that the desk is the right height and all those things. We got some mission creep going on this, and this is really the part that I've experienced since I've been here is we got distracted on a lot of things. We started having a big debate about the location. We started having a big, holy smokes, look at the price of this thing since we last looked at it. The supply chain with COVID and overseas shipping and everything going on. Lack of local vendors, we all know that. we could probably use 10,000 houses built in the valley here. But we don't have the contractors and the folks here to build that and get that going. So as we keep bringing great business opportunities and employment opportunities to value, that economic impact is wonderful. But at some point in time, we have to be able to house all of these people that are coming here. So that's something that we've got to deal with. And then just competing interests, different parties, as like I said, change of government, different people had different priorities and things got changed around, which is all good, that's fine, what's going on. Since 2020, since this study was done, this is just a snapshot of the fire department's workload. So you see, overall, it's a 23% call volume increase since 2020. And so I'm not trying to play tricky or whatever with the sliding the bottom up, just so that you can see the numbers in there. When I had it from a 0 and your first data point, 6,700, it all crammed it to the top of the screen, which doesn't really show anything. But I know that people will play around with charts and stuff, and it's my best effort to never do that with you. I want to be, transparent with you and with our community about what's going on. So what I really need today is that strategic direction. We know the why. We know that we have a growing community. We know we have an aging infrastructure that's affecting our city in a lot of different areas. The what is here that's the fire department side of it, is I need to know the what from you, our council members. We'll work on the how. We'll work on when we'll get there and how we'll get there once we know which way we're going. And so that's really what we're looking for and what I'd like to talk about. So today, even though it's an action item, I had to put on the agenda as an action item because then you can take action versus if we didn't do an action item, you can't. Our action may just be to have a discussion, a question and answer here. What I'd like you to be able to do is to take this study, go back and dig into it, have the opportunity to meet with me and talk with me and have questions answered, dig into this. But in 3 weeks, I'd like to be able to come back and have the council be at a point to really give me some direction on the plan. I think that I don't know that we'd find a better plan out there. It's not that old. Our streets haven't changed, speed limits haven't changed, the physics of our city haven't changed. Our population growth areas are trending exactly where they predicted them in 4 years, or just three complete years now. So yeah, we haven't had a lot of time for that, but I think you need to be comfortable with this. The timelines, I think, personally, is something that we might not want to tie our hands to because we just don't know. We don't know. We have a reservoir failure. We have a big storm that comes through and washes the streets out. We don't always know what we can do. So tying our hands with a timeline saying we're going to do this by this date, while that's a good thing on a SMART objective, it's not necessarily a good thing on a strategic planning where we're looking at things that we honestly don't know how we're going to pay for at this time. And then I'd like to come back a couple weeks later if the council can adopt and give me some strategic direction, is to bring you back a plan that you can take action on and that you can say, okay, let's start doing this. And then that way we can go into the next budget year. Well, we're in our next budget year, but we can go into the spring with a plan to take action with the new council and move things forward. So that's the end of my presentation, short and sweet, but just here for some questions now.
Can you go back to your workload?
Yep.
So the report has in fiscal year 2019, our total responses was 7,367, but it broke it up into EMS, fire, and 3 hazardous materials response. And the very big bulk of those calls were EMS.
Correct.
6,800, with 519 being fire. So do you happen to have that breakdown?
The breakdown runs about 90% for our city. We run about 90% EMS and 10% fire and other aid calls, rescue and hazmat.
Councilor Towsley?
As I read through this, I'm looking at it was a very thorough examination of each of the fire stations. And what I wanted to know was, has any of the issues that are in each of those fire stations, has this been upgraded at all? Is it just as it was in 2020 in terms of things not being up to code, there being contamination opportunities? Is that a good way to describe it? Tell me if there are some things that have been upgraded.
I think that the Station 4, since this was brought up, about this time last year, the Chief Michael Buss was before the council, and I believe it was Councilwoman Lickey that asked the question, well, what are we doing about this stuff right now? And so some steps have been taken at Station 4 regarding the contamination. We're still in that phase. The industrial hygienist was out there 2 weeks ago, and we expect to get the report back by the end of this week is when they're forecasting we'll have the report. So that what they tested for was diesel particulate matter, both on the contact surfaces of the stations and in the porous materials like ceiling tile and so forth. And then they did air sampling. So that's going to give us a baseline of where we're at. There's a plan already moving forward at Station 3. Station 4. The window's supposed to be installed in the bedroom to deal with the egress issue. That's supposed to happen this week. The roofing and electrical are working their way through the engineering and the permitting processes. So we're taking some steps. A lot of this stuff was just kind of put on hold, waiting for the first move, and then there's some back moves that would go on. And we're kind of following that direction, working with the mayor on what can we do right now until we figure out the next step, and what we're going to do is with our next step. And for me, it's just the next. Are we following this plan? Is this, are we in agreement? Okay, here's what we're looking at, and here's where we want to go. Because then we can really just start working on how are we going to get there? How do we fund it? How do we, what's the timing like? What are the locations that we look at? And go from there.
Is there, I'd be curious to know why it wasn't adopted when it was, do you have any sense of that?
I don't know the history, so I guess I get a pass on not knowing the history. I can tell you that there's another study sitting on my desk that was the 2011 EMS strategic plan, and the city paid $25,000 for that. The other agencies in the valley paid another $25,000. So that's a $50,000 binder that's on my desk that really hasn't been implemented. And so I think that that's probably one of those things that we can work together on holding each other accountable. If we're going to pay for a study, then when we get that study back, that we say, okay, this is the direction we're going, because I think we owe it to our citizens to be good fiduciary stewards with the money we're spending on those studies. If we get a study back that's really bad information, then we need to call that out right away and say, this is bad information.
Sure.
And maybe not even pay the bill. But we need to do that because I look at the position you folks are in. You come in and you accept the city the way it came. And in a very unique way with the change of government. It's like, boom, all of a sudden, here you go. And so now you're trying to build that foundation for the next council and the next council. And every 2 years that we have an election, if we were to start over from scratch every 2 years, we're never going to get the business done for the city. So I think that this matter of adopting it and saying, hey, we've accepted this as our truth that we're going to live with, then we can go forward with that. And that helps us, I think, too, when we start getting off track and getting some mission creep, we can go, wait a minute, hang on a second. We're arguing about something that we had already settled. We've looked at this, that we've got some science about it. Unless we have new information, and I do that. I get caught all the time at my house getting, well, I thought we were going to go here on vacation. No, I thought we were going to go here. Getting back to what we've agreed on.
And so I'm sorry, do you want to let somebody else talk?
It's a discussion.
Okay, it's a discussion. I
Go.
do have a question.
Go ahead.
Your 2011 EMS, you mentioned that we split it with other entities. Who were the other entities?
City of Asotin County, City of Clarkston, I believe Nez Perce County was also a participant.
And EMS, we are the sole, LFD is the sole EMS provider in the city of Lewiston currently, right?
In the city of Lewiston, we are the sole EMS provider, correct?
And that plan, are we following that plan?
Yes.
why we have a heavy EMS load currently, correct?
Yeah, so we have the heavy EMS load. The thing about EMS, so when we look at, if you'll let me rabbit trail a little bit here, I'll try to make it quick. When we all pay homeowners insurance, or we pay renters insurance, or we pay our rent to a homeowner who's paying homeowners insurance, those homeowner insurance rates are set based on a rating that's from the Idaho State Ratings Bureau, ISRB. And that rating looks at the infrastructure. They look at your hydrants, your water supply, your training records, your equipment, and your staffing. And through that, they come out with an assignment. And we're a 3 right now. We're an ISO 3 as a city. So when you change to a 2, 2's better, 1's amazing. There's 2 Class 1 departments in all of Washington, for example. And so that when you look at that, there's not very many departments that hit that 1. It takes a huge lift of finances. But a 10 is if you have no protection at all. So as you slide back and forth with that, we've hit this spot where we're at a 3 with all of our resources, and that gets our citizens a certain value for their homeowners insurance. So in that, we have, for our fire risk, we have more firefighters on duty that aren't running fires every single day. We've had a lot of fires this last week, but that's kind of unusual for us. We don't have a lot of fires. It's not the bulk of what we do. So when you look at a city and you say, we've got a bunch of firefighters, what are they doing? Well, they're getting ready, they're preparing, they're training, they're always staying sharp and keeping their equipment ready. But we're able to add a value-added service to our citizens by offering emergency medical services. And that came as an industry back in the early 70s. We were doing it back in the 60s here and formally started doing transport in the 90s. And so that value-added service that our firefighters do for the citizens keeps the cost of EMS down, and it offsets to the tune of about $4 million this year, the $9 million budget that the fire department has. We're able to bring in revenue to offset that. So it's really a value add where the firefighters that we have, we're keeping the insurance rate low, but they're also doing something else while they're doing that because we have that heavy EMS load.
Councilor Spiegelmeier?
So Chief, the one thing that bogs me down with the study is their statement in there, I think it's a couple times, that says it's not cost effective to repair station number 4.
Correct.
What's that number?
So there's an interesting point with building codes and fire codes. When you do a remodel to a certain point, you have to go back and fix everything and bring the whole thing up to code. The other thing with that station is just the footprint's not large enough for the programmatic needs of a fire station. So when we look at, when you build a fire station to today's standards, you don't put a weight room out in the apparatus floor. And 2 of our fire stations, that's where the firefighters work out, is on the apparatus floor, in and amongst the trucks and stuff, is the only space that we have for them to work out. So you need space for a gymnasium area. Sleeping quarters, now the standard sleeping quarters are individual quarters, not open room quarters. That helps us to not spread illnesses. It helps provide privacy and comfort for each other. Sleep hygiene, because you're not being kept awake from somebody snoring in an open bay. So little things like that have started to say, you need a little more square footage. So that building there, if we were to maintain that building, we would go up 2 stories, or we would have to buy property next door and reroute the airports. They'd have to grant a different easement to get in so that we could go out wider than going up. If we go up, we don't have the foundation for it, so we'd have to demo the whole thing and start from scratch. If we go out, we've got the expense of the property. I think there's a lot of great discussions to have about which station, where, and what to do that I think we can launch into really productively once we agree, okay, this is what we've got. This is our starting spot, and then we can move forward with that.
So you're just wanting us to adopt this plan?
And not today. I think that given a couple more weeks, ask some questions, really make sure you understand what it is. And a lot of it's very technical, and I'm happy to meet with anybody and talk about response times and how we calculate that, why we use certain standards for cardiac arrest survival, and then also for fire and arriving with so many people at such a certain percentage of the time.
And, sorry,
No,
A lot of it comes into response times, and it's, I guess for me not being a fireman, it's hard to wrap my mind around moving it 5 blocks if it's 4th or 5th. Is it worth it, in the long run? It just seems like we're gradually going to the edge of what would meet the standards, so. And you did say, that none of the spots are set in stone, obviously, but, we could still look at different locations or things like that.
yeah, I think that the study calls out for 2 of the stations to reevaluate their location.
Chief, I'll throw in my 2 cents on this a little bit. So a couple of observations. First of all, I agree with you. I think council maybe should have taken a strong position on this earlier and maybe adopted this. I don't have the answer why they did not do that, but it's very important if you're going to plan, as you said earlier, and to lead the department to have, I think, that support and guidance from your city council. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Secondly, what I'm going to say here, I think looking at what the current needs of the city are right now, to me, when we talk about, fire station needs and things like that, it probably should be part of a bigger discussion on facilities. Because we have a lot of deferred maintenance in the city, and we have a lot of needs in the city for other facilities. And if you look at this plan, it just kind of gives us some timeframes, short-term, mid-term, and long-term. If we put in these stations and here's the things we do, but there's no dollars attached to it. So it's really hard to plan or to think into the future if you have no indication of what those budget impacts may be. And we do the same thing with our transportation capital improvement plan, where we have a nice long plan. We're about to go through that again. I take public comment on that, and the public will say, this is what we think is important. And it'll list them, like from number 1 down to, say, 100. And then it'll list what the dollar amounts are to do these projects. And all that does is it just lists a preference or a priority for these projects, but there's no money attached to it. But it helps us plan for the future. If you're going to do this item, then here's what it's gonna cost in today's dollars. And so as I think about this over the next 3 weeks, I'm gonna be thinking about that, because I think it would help if we talk about facilities in general, not just the fire station, but other facilities needs that we have, because the dollars are not gonna be available there to do it all, and I know you understand that. And then council maybe can set some priorities within that facilities plan. So if they tell you right up front, this is a priority for us, and it's maybe listed number 1 on that facilities plan, hopefully that gives you some pretty good direction and future councils and the public where we're headed in terms of where the priorities are. And then lastly, I want to just comment on the 8 versus some other service standard. I don't know if when you do that, if it's possible to do some kind of a sensitivity analysis where maybe if you use a 10-minute standard instead of an 8, how does that map change, and how does that impact decisions or influence decisions about where we may or may not build a new station, or maybe we just remodel. So, and I guess maybe a follow-up to that would be why the 8-minute standard, why that was chosen to do the modeling versus 4, 6, 8, or 10. That's a lot of information, and that might be much more expensive than the money we paid for this, but it's just a question at this point.
I think there's a couple things we have available to us. With the advances in GIS, we can do some of these studies ourselves where we can look at heat maps of our calls, we can look at travel distances and stuff. And so I think that these are all the great places that I want to start going to once we agree, okay, we're here, we're starting here. We don't have dollars, we don't have a timeline, but we do have these are the needs. And then we start folding those in, and yeah, we have to prioritize it. We have to look at, obviously what funding sources are available, what you can do with what, when. We've all seen how long it took to fund the high school. We've seen the community park priorities. There's all these things that are grabbing for our attention and our dollars. And that's where you guys get to set the priorities based on what the voters are telling you. I just want to be able to coming from the fire side of things, is to give you the best recommendations as your fire chief of what, given this information, this is what I believe are the priorities and where we should, grab it first and what we should do. And then we can have that back and forth of, well, if you got this much money, what would you do with it? Okay, we do this, what would that leave undone? And so I think that it's, I'm a pretty stickler, and Mayor knows, on just fiduciary responsibilities and being a good steward with the resources that we have. And what I want to do is I want to stop chasing our tail and studying everything and paying for studies. And it's just like you said, you want to have that dollar amount so you know, am I talking about something that's $5 million or $10 million? Well, sometimes as we've seen with this, you're throwing a dart at a board, because nobody would have guessed the fire station was going to come in at over $8 million when we were thinking 3.9, right? We had 6, we thought, golly, we're in great shape. And then, you get punched in the nose. So the plan falls apart.
Chief, the other thing I would add to my comments, because I do want to say this publicly, you and I have talked about this, and I've had the opportunity to visit with some of your firefighters about this, and our former chief, Michael Bush, at Lewis Clark State College now, but I think we really have an opportunity to also look at being a center of excellence for training. And the demand is there, and I think Lewiston is really geographically located in an ideal place where we could provide that for many of our outlying communities. This isn't about growing government, anybody that's out there listening to it. This is about providing a service that's in demand, and folks will pay for that service. But I think it's an opportunity that we have that we could probably expand on just a little bit more in the facilities plan, because I think it's a very real need today.
I appreciate that. And I think it's, we live in a heavy farming community, and farmers know that if you don't take care of your soil and you don't plant well and you don't forecast and think ahead, eventually your crops are going to die off. And that's where we're at. In the state of Idaho, with paramedics, we know that we have 80 paramedics that retire every year and leave the Idaho Fire Service. We have 40 that graduate Idaho-based colleges. Well, it doesn't take a genius to do the math on that one. We're having to import 40 paramedics a year back into our state somehow. And that's one of those things, I think you're right, is that we have a really neat opportunity down here. We have a phenomenal college, that beautiful small town feel. People come here for nursing, they come here for baseball, they can come here to become a firefighter and a paramedic, and that will benefit our community, it'll benefit the whole valley, and it just kind of feeds into our staffing and everything else. So I think there will be some neat opportunities ahead with that.
Councilor Dowsley.
Chief, if you were to give this a letter grade as a report, you're the person that knows this probably better than anybody else in this room. What letter grade would you give it?
I'd give this report a good strong A. They've got good traffic analysis or travel time analysis. They've got good forecasting for the census forecasts, and they utilize the local resources from from our different real estate outfits and stuff, looking at where we think we're going to grow and things like that. And I think that they did a good job of going out physically and documenting the condition of the stations, and incorporating that in. The TCA planning and design, as well as Longwell Trapper, are really well-known and trusted firms that put this information together.
Councilors, further questions, comments for the chief?
Mayor,
Councilor Forsman.
I think this is great to bring it back to the table and have these discussions. I also agree that there's a wider picture to look at. There's a lot of deferred maintenance with a lot of different buildings, but also our firemen are important and our EMS is important, so we need to make sure we're putting them at the forefront as well. So it'd be, as the mayor said, it'd be good to make sure that we kind of look at it overall to figure out where we can put the finances and how we can get this underway. And I wholeheartedly agree with Rep Meyer that we want to stop just planning, but we need to actually start making some movements. And so I'm looking forward to that and really looking what's the best option for the citizens as well as those that provide us safety and EMS support. So I'm full in support of figuring out how we can do this so that we are making sure that they are safe. So thank you for presenting this.
Thank you. That's a happy noise.
Both of you. Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Lidkey?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Chief, I apologize for having to step out. My insurance in relation to my day job's fire safety was calling me.
I didn't put them up to it.
Then called me right back, so I figured that was something I should have taken the phone call. I will agree that I believe that we need some new facilities, but while we're long-term planning, I would really like to see that the fire department comes together, that we hear from your men in a consolidated report of what are the priorities to make sure that we're getting them safe now and into each fiscal year, so that we're not coming back and saying this was pushed out and yet the other, how many ever firemen are served per station were ignored once again when we could have attacked something in Station 2 in this fiscal year, or hit all stations to make improvements of the safety of your men. I think that's the ultimate goal is of all your men, not just in Station 4. But while we know that this study shows that is something that we need, a replacement or an additional, but, and then just, be creative. We've talked about consolidation before. There's a fire station that's currently housing signs that was built in the late 80s, I believe, and was rarely ever used. Is there something that we can learn from that experience? And I just think that we've got to keep bringing things to the table and then asking the group to figure out what's fiduciarily available.
Absolutely. And that's, that's, my real need is to know where to start. And so that's the first step is if this is my starting spot, then I can start collecting information, answering these questions, and we can start looking at options of how to attack it, how to eat the elephant, the one bite at a time. Because we've got a lot out in front of us. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So with your, not for action, but does the plan to come back on the 27th then work for you, Madam Councilwoman? Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Councilors, next up, we have item 5D, the Ann Bollinger Performing Arts Center auction update. Update on the public auction and discussion on the next steps for the Ann Bollinger Performing Arts Center located at 805 6th Avenue. This is an action item, and I'm going to reference the memo that was included in your packet, and I hope, excuse me, I hope you had the opportunity or took the opportunity to read that memo because it's very well done. Prepared by Deb Lewis, our financial services manager, and Candy McCard, our purchasing coordinator, who are both in attendance here today. And if you look on page 2 of that memo, it says, middle of the page there, it says pursuant to Idaho Code Title 50-1403, if no bids are received, which we did not receive any responsive bids, the city council should have the authority to sell such property as it deems in the best interest of the city. Listed are the available options. While some of these options may be less likely or more complex to implement, they are included for a thorough consideration of the city council's available choices. Again, this is an action item, and there are 8 choices, or you could come up with one of your own. But with that, I would like to open it up for discussion. And also, we did receive several emails after the auction closed, and those have been shared with you. Folks have expressed interest, and they may or may not have taken a tour of the facility or even registered with GovDeals, but here we are today. So with that, councilors, I'm going to open this up for your guidance and direction. Tell the city what you want to do. Councilor Forsman.
I don't know if I read those correctly, but it seems that a lot of the interest has more been the concern that it's going to be torn down, which I haven't seen that to be a topic of discussion at this point in time. Am I misreading that, or is that or are there people interested in actually possibly buying this building outside of the auction?
My understanding, Counselor, is that some folks have said they may be potentially interested in purchasing the building. I don't know why they did not submit a bid. Some claimed that others were gonna bid and they did not. I think you do have the option to demolish the building. You don't have to sell the building or let it stand forever, so. Counselor Speckelmeyer.
So looking at all the ones and kind of going after the comments, the one about the demolition, if the city demolished it, the cost of it would far exceed the value of the land, I would assume. So to me, it really wouldn't be an option for the city.
Would be a wash.
Counselor Claybrook.
No, I think the cost of demolition versus what the value of the land is would probably be very close to the same value. Last numbers we got, which were probably 4 years ago, put it about $225,000. Demo the building and level it.
Counselor Schroeder.
And it depends on how you're gonna demolition, for what purpose, if just to get rid of it and down, that's one thing, but if you want it to salvage, that's another thing, and it's more expensive to do that. I mean, there's stone there that I would maybe have a use for some, but I mean, I'm just saying that there is a value to what's there for salvage, but it costs more money, and how do you gauge the return on that? So, just saying you're gonna demo it, it's one way or the other. I don't think either one of them is a good solution, but.
You have some great ideas here, Counselor. Counselor Towsley.
Just to throw this into the mix, the Bollinger Group, this is the group that was trying to put something together and that we're soliciting to try to get the status of the building changed, are going to be meeting again next week on the 15th at 4 p.m. I plan on attending that and I think this will be a time for them to move rapidly, or we are forced to do something. But I'm not sure that I'm wanting to move on something today.
Counselor Schroeder.
Thank you. I'm not willing to, I'm not thinking that it's a feasible thing to engage an agent. I don't know what it costs to run the auction. But if there's still people out there, maybe a holding period to give them notice to come up with something, because we got a memo today from somebody saying that they are interested, and maybe for the Ann Bollingers to commit or die. So I think maybe a holding.
Thank you, Counselor. My understanding that it did not cost us anything to list it with vendor. Counselor Speckelmeyer.
Mayor, so Counselor Towsley, the Bollinger Group, are they, as far as they're wanting to renovate it? Is that their plan?
No, they're still trying to, I mean, when I first met with them, they were trying to put together a group to possibly purchase, and I'm speaking from what I remember about this. But they were hindered because of the status of the building at that point. So it's been, it was changed and then it was put up for auction, but that really, at a time frame, it's really not that long. So I think what I want to hear at that meeting next week is they have a plan to move forward. And if they don't, then I think we are forced to make the moves that we have to make in the interest of the city. I want to give them an opportunity for something to be put forth. And I think that's important. But I don't think they are necessarily trying to buy it themselves. They're trying to build a group of people to do that.
So didn't, one of the emails we had was for somebody that wanted to renovate it? Is that correct?
I think so.
We've had a lot of ideas come forward, yeah. But no money. Show me the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to influence this decision any, but show me the money.
Yeah, I'd really like to choose any option that doesn't have us spending money on a building we will never use and have never used since we took it over. Except spend money on it to protect the public from its safety hazard.
Counselor Spicklemeyer?
Well, and I had one call from, and I think it might have been one of the emails, was, the person was asking what the taxes would be on it if it took them a long time to renovate it. You know, would the tax burden be huge, or would the tax burden be on the $67,000 that they paid for it? So that's a question as well.
Question for the county.
Yeah.
Will anybody,
Counselor Claiborne?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anybody buying it, gonna have to be prepared to spend at least $2.5 million. Bring that thing up to being anywhere near current codes and safe for the next 25 years. I mean, it starts at the exterior of the building. I mean, all the chinking, it's gotta be replaced. All that mortar is. Then you can start working on the inside. I just don't see it.
Counselor Schroeder?
Have we had, I mean, I haven't seen it, so, but perhaps I missed it. Have we had anyone that has come in under the starting bid to purchase it? I haven't seen anything like that, have we?
It was a minimum bid of 67, yeah, so.
And nobody after we closed that has come and said, okay, I'll give you 2,000 for it.
Not to my knowledge.
I didn't think I saw that either.
Fire station.
Counselor Ledke? Was that, I couldn't hear you.
I just would like to have it off of our workload at this point. Beautiful building that unfortunately fell to circumstances. Got punched in the nose, as Chief Reitmeyer said, more than once.
Mayor, should we set a date and review it one more time and give everyone notice that that's their deadline and then we're going to do something?
Counselor, I think you have the ability to do just about anything, and so that's why I don't know if you have that list in front of you, but I think it's a great list, some great options there on what to do.
If there's an action that needs to be done, then I would say, I would go with, list it with a real estate agent. Because that will possibly give any entity that wants to try to put something together time.
With what kind of timeline? Sorry.
Counsel, it's your discussion.
We'd be looking at, I don't know, how long is a listing normally these days? 90 days, 120 days?
That's, I was thinking 90.
You put it up for 120 days, see what happens. And if nothing happens, I mean, how long does the city have this property? I don't feel like we need to rush into something today.
But I think
Honestly.
with the realtor, you get the option of offers too.
Sure.
And you don't have to pay unless they sell. Okay. That would be my vote if we needed to. do
Councilors,
that.
we have to speak up because this is a
Sorry.
public meeting and we have members of the public listening. Councilor Schroeder.
Thank you. With the information that we're talking about using a realtor, a 90-day listing, 120-day listing, something like that, just to do something today, I think that might be the easiest, and then everybody knows there's a timeline and a place to go if they're interested.
Mayor,
Councilor Forsman.
getting a realtor, sounds like a good idea to me. I think that as Councilor Towsley said, we've been on this property a while. I don't feel the need to rush into a decision. Nor would I want to rush into the idea of demolishing. It's a beautiful building and hopes that if there are people interested, maybe giving them a little more time to work that out is a feasible option. So I'm in favor of getting a realtor and giving more time for someone to hopefully take it with love and do something with it.
I'll second. Councilman Schroeder.
Well, there's been discussion, councilors, but I need it in the form of a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Councilor Schroeder.
I move that we put this out to a realtor for either a 90-day to begin with or 120. 90-day? No, 120 days, okay. So that there's some time for people and they know where to go. And we're not demolishing. So that's my motion.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Schroeder, second by Councilor Forsman, to direct staff to list the Bollinger Building with a real estate agent.
Need to direct what real estate agent, or does the city have one that they use?
Councilor Lidkey, could I ask you to ask you a question again so the folks in the back can hear?
Does the city have a realtor, or do we need to direct that as well in our motion, is my question.
Councilor, I don't think, City Attorney Herman, Kayla Herman, please.
Hello. I'm a little croaky, my apologies. Kayla Herman, City Attorney. No, my understanding is the city does not have a set realtor. So on our end, we would need to work with purchasing to potentially come up with a real estate listing agreement with a realtor. We'll need to figure that out on our end, but possibly that agreement would need to come back to council for approval. Again, we haven't really gone through this process before, so we would need to work through those details. But we could certainly explain council's desire with them and try to get that formulated and then bring it back to council hopefully in the near future for approval. And we can also work closely with the mayor if that's something he can possibly approve. But just to make council aware, I'm not sure in terms of advertising costs, that may be something that the city has to front. I'm not a real estate agent, so I don't know all those questions off the top of my head. But I think as long as the motion is clear that the direction is for staff and the mayor to proceed with identifying a realtor and getting this listed, we will then make sure if we need to bring a contract back to you, we will.
Kayla, also, if you would please provide comment on the motion and whether or not an appraisal would be included in that contract with the real estate agent or desirable.
Sure, and that's a decision for council. So if that is something that council wants to be part of that motion, please so indicate. An appraisal is not required, but can certainly be undertaken to help guide that decision. And again, I'm sure there would be a cost associated with that as well. So it's really up to council at this point.
Councilor Spicklemeyer?
Does the motion also have to include the asking price?
Not at this time, no, it would not.
other questions for our city attorney? Okay. Thank you, Kayla.
Thank you.
Councilors, I need 1 minute here to get my thoughts together.
So I had a comment.
Councilor Towsley?
Yeah, as I was looking through our options, it would seem that the listing with a real estate agent would be the best thing that we could actually move on today, because I would assume that with a negotiated sale, that there would already be something possibly where somebody has an interest and has shown that to staff or to the mayor. Property exchange, that'll take a lot of time, I don't think that the city, in our current climate and culture, has any interest in retaining ownership. Transferring it to a government entity, I don't think anybody that we know of has shown any interest in that. They might have shown some interest during the auction, or transferring it. So I think this is our best option at this point, if we're moving forward.
And second on that, the property exchange could come also through a realtor.
Sure.
So we would be taking care of that one as well.
Absolutely.
Councilor Forsman, did you have any additional comment?
No, I think that this is a first good step forward. Hopefully we can get some movement on that with this.
Councilor Schroeder, was it your intent to have the property appraised?
Not at the time I made the motion. So it's up to the council. I don't even have a clue.
Well, it came up in the discussion, but if it's not significant, okay, then that's fine.
I mean, somebody can make an amendment to that, but I don't have an interest in an appraisal. We have a sense of it. That's just an added cost.
Buyer could get the appraisal.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor, since this is discussion time, I don't see anyone from finance here, but I'm gonna ask, I'm gonna put our clerk on the spot, only because she and I have had these questions already this week, but Clerk Brocky, I'm going to presume then that council has money in their contingency fund or the contracted services to pay for this? That's where I would intend to take the money to pay for any advertisement costs and appraisal costs and things like that. Is that reasonable, you think? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you look at those numbers sometimes. I don't, I just write checks and then you tell me I'm out of money, so.
Yeah, I believe so, and I can double check it and see what we've
Okay,
got.
just so council has an understanding of where I'm gonna look for the money to pay for this, that you do have a contingency and/or contracted services line item, and that's where I'll look for some money to pay for this.
And I could be wrong in terms of commercial property, which is what this might be considered, but when I list a house to sell, then I have an agreement with an agent, and that's part of what they do. And I don't think this is something that we would have to be out of pocket for anything, unless it's a different ballgame.
No, I don't know, Counselor, but just to tell you up front, everybody knows, and here's it.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, Counselors, you have a motion before you to direct staff to list the property, the Bollinger Building, with a real estate agent for 120 days. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Thank you, council. Okay, next we move to Roman numeral 6, unfinished and new business. City councilor comments. A, comments shall not be related to an item currently before the city council or an item that may come before the city council in the foreseeable future. It shall be limited to comments, not discussion. Are there council comments?
Mayor,
Councilor Forsman?
I just want to apologize that I'm on Zoom. I intended to be there and then my little mumchkin decided that she did not feel good at all. So, I have no one to take her, so I had to come in online. But, I'm glad I'm able to chime in and, it was a good session. So I wanted to apologize. I'd like to be there in person, but obviously I was not able.
Thank you, Councilor. Council comments? City boards and commission liaison updates. Councilors, any updates? One? Next up, mayor comments. Well, I thank you for your patience. I held over a little bit longer in my office to listen in on a hearing that we had scheduled today, so I appreciate your patience on that. I'd like to thank members of the public for being here today. Those of you that are here, thank you for showing interest in your city council. It's important that we have you here. We appreciate you being here. Item 60, agenda topics. Councilors, anything to put on a future agenda? Councilor Speckelmeyer?
Thank you, Mayor. The Normal Hill Cemetery master plan update, we had it originally scheduled for January. We would like to make a motion to move that master plan review to the February work session.
Second.
Okay, councilors, there's been a motion to move the update on the cemetery master plan from the January to the February work session. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Should be ordered. Thank you, Counselor. Any other agenda topics? Okay. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Schroeder, second by Counselor Towsley that we adjourn. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.